We are welcoming back a special guest to the studio. Tyrann Mathieu will be here talking with us in just a little bit, and we expect to see him throughout the season on this show. We don't have the schedule down just yet, but be on the lookout for the Honey Badger on this show. But before we get to that, man, we've got some things we got to talk about in week one. There was a whole lot of good, but still some concerns after week one heading into week two. I'm Brooke Kirchhofer alongside Nick Underhill and Mike Triplett. We're going to break it all down in today's episode.
Yeah, I think more good than bad from this game, though. And if you're a Saints fan, you should be feeling pretty good about where your team's at right now. We're feeling pretty good about where our team's at right now. We got a lot of exciting stuff going on. Be on the lookout for an announcement. We're going to be going live Monday during the afternoon from Carolina to preview that game. So that's something to look forward to this week. And another thing to look forward to is PJ's Coffee. They are our presenting sponsor. So if you need to get your day started, make sure you go and check them out. And if you have any medical needs, make sure you check out the LCMC Medical Network, Toro Hospital. They will get you right if you need to get right. And somebody that will always make sure you're right is Matt Bowers. Check out his car dealerships all over the Gulf Coast region. That's where we buy all of our cars. Just bought one today. So yeah, it is actually where I get all my cars. The NewOrleans.Football show is proudly presented by PJ's Coffee. PJ's Coffee has some of the best drinks that you can find. They have locations all over the city. They have pastries and everything else you need to get your day started. So go check them out. Are you looking for the perfect engagement ring? Look no further than Friend & Company Fine Jewelers' new engagement salon. This new area houses a wide selection of engagement rings to choose from in all cuts, sizes, and colors. Their experienced staff offer 5-star customer care to help you find the perfect ring to express your love. Visit their new engagement salon today. Friend & Company Fine Jewelers, the perfect ring for the perfect moment and also for the perfect person. 7713 Maple Street between Adams and Burdett Street. 504-866-5433. Friend & Company Fine Jewelers. Check them out at friendandcompany.com.
For fast relief coffee.
Mike Hoss here. When the AC goes out and it's hot outside, every second counts. For over 40 years, Keefe's AC Heating and Electrical has helped thousands of families stay cool in the sizzling hot months. Keefe's Get You Cool in 3 hours or less guarantee is what our customers love the most on the North or South Shore. Call Keefe's. We'll get you cool in 3 hours or less guaranteed.
Keefe's Air Conditioning and Heating.
And now electrical.
For fast relief call Keefe.
Moe's Barbecue is located in Metairie. They have your game day needs taken care of. Whether you're tailgating or watching the Black and Gold or LSU at home with friends, Moe's has you covered. Order pulled pork, wings, ribs, sides, and more. Come in with the family for lunch and dinner as our kids' meals will please even the pickiest of eaters. Tailgating, parties at home, lunch and dinner, Moe's Barbecue will handle it all. Moe's Original Barbecue, 1101 North Causeway Boulevard between 48th and 49th Street in Metairie. Call 504-407-5333 for your catering order today. 504-407-5333. Moe's Original Barbecue in Metairie. Hardhide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey is an 86 proof blend of aged wheat bourbon, American light whiskey, and fresh Ponchatoula strawberries. Blended in New Orleans, it is not for the thin-skinned. Look for it in your favorite stores, bars, and restaurants. NewOrleans.Football is proud to be sponsored by Firehouse Subs. Make sure you check out their location on Veterans Boulevard. All right, let's get into the show.
Let's get into our lead topic presented by Friend & Company Fine Jewelers. Friend & Company Fine Jewelers is home to a new engagement salon. They have a wide selection of engagement rings to choose from. And while you're there, ask them about the fleur-de-lis earrings and necklace that I have on now. They are specially priced for our NOF audience. All right, let's get to the lead topic. Peyton Turner is going to miss an extended period of time with a turf toe injury that is expected to require surgery. What does this mean now for the depth with the defensive ends for the Saints?
Well, I think it's a big hit for the depth. I mean, he was somebody that they were counting on. Their depth was already kind of thinnish. It didn't have like a lot of high-end talent. So he was somebody that was at least like a beacon of potential hope. And now you've kind of eliminated that from it. I think it means Tano Passanio probably gets some more snaps in there. They just signed Kyle Phillips to the 53-man roster from the practice squad. He might be somebody that gets a handful more snaps. I don't know that it means anything for Isaiah Foskey. Either he's ready or he's not, but this just kind of puts more pressure on him to be ready at some point this season to contribute. So I think it's a big hit for hope. Maybe not a big hit for practical production because we don't know what he was going to be, but it makes you feel worse about a position that was already kind of at the top of that list of concerns coming into the season.
No, you're exactly right with the beacon of hope tape, because they didn't lose anything from past production. It's no big deal compared to what he's been the last couple of years. He wasn't a core player on this team, but we all thought legitimately he had a chance to be. It was a really good preseason for him. It was a really good preseason for him because he had finally stayed healthy. All OTAs on minicamp. I talked ad nauseum about how promising it looked for him, and this just stinks. And I know a lot of people are going to be ready to give up on him. It's Marcus Davenport all over again, the guy he's been compared to throughout his career, and I think this is going to be hard for him to come back from another lost season for the third season in a row, which really stinks because I think there is legitimate talent there, but. Is he replaceable? Maybe not. His ceiling might not be replaceable, but his entire career's worth of production is replaceable. And I do think Isaiah Foskey will be a part of it. I mean, I asked Dennis Allen about it, and he said, obviously he's still a guy that needs development, but this probably accelerates that learning curve a little bit. Somebody asked me a good question on Twitter. They said either he's ready or he's not. And I go, that's not necessarily that black and white in the NFL. Alontae Taylor was an example that came to my mind. They had to throw him in the fire last year. He came off IR, and they said, you're covering DeAndre Hopkins. And that accelerated his learning curve, and he went on to have a great season, whereas he might not have played that much if they had been healthy in the secondary. So sometimes a young guy who hasn't quite earned it yet does get thrown in there a little more, and there is nothing that will give you seasoning more than that. Obviously, if we see Isaiah Foskey, he's not ready to be a standout player, but maybe that gets him there by December. I don't know. But obviously, they're going to have guys like Kyle Phillips around if he's absolutely not ready. I'm curious to see if Foskey's active already in this game.
Well, you talk about guys wanting to step in and make plays. I know that somebody asked us on social media, did Kyle Phillips look ready in the preseason? I think it's fair to say that he did. Look, he's spent the last 3 seasons with the Jets, went to college at Tennessee, was placed on IR late in 2020 with an MCL injury. So it's not like he is scot-free from injuries in his past, specifically in the NFL. This is his 4th year in the NFL, so it is a little bit concerning seeing that MCL injury. But I feel like we were impressed with him, and he was maybe somebody we were even circling a little bit of a question mark in the preseason because he did make that one big play in the preseason game.
Yeah, he stood out a couple times at least, and he's probably solid. You're at least setting a floor there, which I think when you're looking at a guy that might not be ready to play, you got to know at least like that you can stop the fall at some point if he can't play. I think that's probably what Kyle Phillips is. A lot of people were asking about Nico Lalos. Look, I know he had a great preseason game, but like you're going against third string guys, for a guy from the XFL. Like if there was more there to give, he'd probably be the guy that they're leaning on in this situation. They aren't. So it makes sense to me to go to Phillips kind of before him, but it's still a bit of an unknown. And look, you're lowering that floor still significantly though. Like it's just the bar is different now. And it's tough to take Peyton Turner out of there. The Marcus Davenport comparison though, like the thing with Marcus Davenport though is like there were times when he was legitimately great. Right. Like you could make the argument, like there were days when he was arguably the best pass rusher in the NFL. There were days when he was far, far from that, but at least the highs like gave you something. Like we just haven't seen it from Peyton Turner. And it's hard to stomach a little bit because you hear so much from his teammates about how talented he is, like technically, and it's just like he can't put it together. The health just won't cooperate with him. I don't ever blame a player for not being healthy, but at this point, like that draft pick is not working. Like, and that has to turn around very quickly for him, just in terms of his career, his potential earnings, his place in the league. Like things have gone completely against him to this point. And it's a big deal this year because it feels like they kind of bet on him a little bit. And that bet busted 3/4 into the season. And, now what do? You're looking at guys that you got off the street midway through training camp. You're looking at Nico Lalos, your 2nd round pick at 40 isn't working. Like it's crazy how many resources they've put into this defensive line. And you're sitting here and it's like there just aren't answers. And man, that's a tough pill to swallow.
Two of the answers have to be on the higher end, the guys that they have to keep healthy. I mean, Carl Granderson had one of the best games after having one of the best preseasons. And then Brian Brzee played the tackle position inside that NASCAR package. I meant to count up the exact number of snaps. It was Tano a lot early. It was Brzee a lot late. So a lot of times that could have been a position for Peyton Turner to be an extra end in their NASCAR package. Now, Brzee is a tackle who stays on the field because he's got pass rush ability. It makes Carl Granderson and Brian Brzee a lot more important. And so they're going to have to deliver on what we've seen glimpses of as well.
I have to ask you, since Peyton Turner is your guy, after something like this, did the Saints move on from him? I mean, he's eventually going to come back this season.
They don't
but
have to make that decision yet.
Right. But do you think based on this and the limited production he's going to get when he does come back, if he does come back this season, is it finally time to move off of him?
Well, no, I mean, they don't have to make that decision for 11 and a half months when they cut down to 53 next year, see what kind of offseason he has. He's obviously not going to get the fifth-year extension next year. And they already did sort of move on by drafting Foskey in the second round. They're already realizing they need to replenish that defensive end position because they realize they don't have proven talent already in the house. But yeah, with Cam Jordan well into his 30s, defensive end remains a high draft priority next year, no doubt about it.
I would say, yeah, I mean, you got to go into this offseason trying to replace him.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
it's a move you got to make. Cam's getting older. Foskey was kind of, you could argue, to replace Davenport. You need three of those guys kind of at the top end of the depth chart. So, yeah, you got to go into the offseason looking as if you don't have anyone there because you don't. You haven't for 3 years since you drafted him. And again, that's not a knock on Peyton Turner. He's been hurt. Injuries are legitimate. We saw him get hurt on the turf. It's a thing that happens. But it's time to be very serious about going back to that defensive end position. And I'm going to just say it again. It's extremely disappointing that they are in this position. Like, that is the biggest failure of this recent drafting regime, that you're sitting here and it's just like, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? There's no answers. And you got 2 first-round picks in Marcus Davenport. You got one in Peyton Turner. You got pick 40, which is, basically a cusp first-round pick in Isaiah Foskey, and no answer. It's a tough break, man.
Yeah. And when I answer that question, move on. I just mean they don't have to cut him heading into the offseason.
Yes.
They do have to have a replacement plan. No
year.
doubt about it. They do have to have a replacement plan.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to the positive sides of the defense, because we need to get there. I mean, this was one of the better week 1 performances we've seen top to bottom from a Saints defense in a while. Look, they've always hung their hat on being a really good defense, but coming out against a Derrick Henry, DeAndre Hopkins styled offense was really impressive to see some of the things they were capable of. Let's just get down to the film review. We know that you broke everything down. What was the one big thing you were circling after watching film study?
Okay. We're talking about the ends, and you could probably make the argument that Cam Jordan and Carl Granderson won them this game. Like, they were just so effective throughout. They were just consistently back there. It's a bad offensive line, but they were amazing. Just kind of going down the list, Demario Davis, like, he had probably one of his better games in recent memory, and I was kind of sitting here like wondering what he was going to look like coming into the season, because at some point, like, people start to get old, but I guess Demario doesn't. Like, I don't know what's going on here. It's like his career is almost like Benjamin Button, like it's playing in reverse. Like, he's getting better as he goes, and like the beginning he was like kind of slow. So I don't know. It's like he's aging backwards a little bit, and it's insane because like his range in this game was crazy. Like, he was just all over the place. His run defense was immaculate. He covered well. I thought everybody on the defense played well. They tackled well. They executed well. They had good ball population. They covered well. Like, it was just right down the list. And, it's not even just like one of the better Saints week 1 performances on defense, like one of the better Saints defensive performances, like, period. Like, that's a top 20 game of the last, I don't know, whatever. Right. Like, it was an amazing performance. I said masterclass after the game. Like, I feel just as strongly about that statement. Like, sometimes you overstate things in the aftermath. Like, I feel like that's what it was. Like, DA was just all the way in it. Like, it was a beautiful game plan, beautifully executed.
Yeah, I'd lump Pete Werner in there too. I thought he had a good game. I remember we were talking about his pace of tackles and everything. 8 tackles right away in the first game, and that's what he does best, more than sacks, interceptions. He did. Did he get credited for a half sack in this? I can't remember now. I'll have to look that up. But 8 tackles for him, and that puts him, on that pace to be well over 100. That's what he was doing every week last year. And then the thing that was probably the most positive is Marshawn Lattimore. This is going to be a tape that you can put on his highlight reel. But they didn't win by picking on Adebo or Alontae Taylor either. DeAndre Hopkins had a quiet game. Treylon Burks was non-existent. None of the receivers had success in this game. Really, really impressive all around.
Brooke, anything stand out to you just like about how they covered?
So one of the things that impressed me that you touched on this a little bit is age. Not a factor for Cam Jordan. Not a factor for Demario Davis. I know people were giving us grief after our review of the game right after the game, as we didn't mention the Cam Jordan batted down passes. Incredible to see him this far along in his career, and he still has the range. And I mean, we always joke that Nicky has 6 kids. He's the 6th because he just does have so much energy. And I mean, he proved that he still has a lot of life left in the NFL and still could potentially have another great year that could put him truly in that Hall of Fame caliber. But no, some of the things that we were mentioning during the flow of the game is we kept seeing the cover one single high safety, which to me, and we're going to get some answers from Tyrann Mathieu a little bit later on this, but the trust you must have in your outside cornerbacks, and even in that single high safety, if something breaks down and they do go deep, to have the trust in a defense that is going up with DeAndre Hopkins and Derrick Henry on the field. I mean, it leaves a lot of things open. I know you're adding somebody to the box by going in that single high safety to try to manage Derrick Henry, but when you still have DeAndre Hopkins and some other talented wide receivers, to me, it was the Saints were daring them. Like, go for it. See what will happen. There you go. 3 interceptions week 1.
Yeah, you kind of made me take a closer look at that. They had 17 snaps of it, which was like last year, and far and away like their most popular coverage in this game. Last year, it used to be like cover one quarters were kind of like even neck and neck. And it's kind of interesting in this game, too, because when you're playing cover one, your corners have their backs to the ball carriers. So, like, if you get a run to the outside, you're kind of in trouble a little bit. So, like, you're really trusting your front and you're trusting your guys on the outside when they're in coverage. So, it was just kind of an interesting approach. They executed it really, really well. And, you know, that's just a testament to how well this game was called. He had him prepared. DA had him prepared to tackle, which is paramount if you're going to kind of take that risk and have your cornerbacks, like, out of the loop as far as, like, coming back to assist in some of that tackling. So, they just went out there and they just really, really did their thing.
We still have some questions, though, with the offense, specifically on the offensive line. Look, Trevor Penning, the concern all of training camp, all of preseason was making sure he got a volume of reps just because he missed so much time his rookie season due to injury. I think a lot of those concerns were seen in week 1. I don't know if it was butterflies. I don't know if it was him just getting outright beat, if it was a little bit of James Hurst, too. But the left side of the offensive line has to get cleaned up week 2.
It's the most concerning thing about that game, no question. I mean, you'd like to think the talent will eventually show up and that being thrown into the fire that way and getting those snaps can only help bring him along, and that he should be better in week 2 and much better in week 6 and much better in week 10. But the most concerning thing we saw about him was handling speed rush, and that was way worse than I would have expected. And it would be, we might be talking about him losing them the game if the officials make the right call on that sack fumble. It was also him getting beat by the speed rush, and he didn't give Derek Carr a lot of time on the game-winning throw either. Derek Carr got that throw off just in time, so that's got to get way, way better. Obviously, that's something you can coach to help. You can chip more. You can add an extra guy over there, and I think they can coach their way out of that a little bit. But that's not how they want to operate all season. He's got to get better at it.
And they sent a guy at him, too. Like, the guy coming at Penning, they sent an extra blocker at him, like, to buy time so that Carr would have time to set that up and Shaheed could get down the field, and it almost didn't work. I mean, it's a huge issue. It's something that they really got to figure out. Look, I think there is, like, an element of, like, they're going to let him take his lumps and see where it's at. But I think you have to be very aware of, like, whether it's going up or going down or staying flat. Like, you need to see the arrow going up a little bit to kind of to stick with it and then to continue to put him out there. I mean, look, we just saw a guy on Monday night get hurt. We saw Carr take a hit in this game. Like, there's just things that you have to be very, very cognizant of if you're making this risk. But, like, you know, as everybody was quick to point out, like, Terron Armstead was really bad when he first started out and they gave him time and he figured it out. Trevor Penning, it was his second start, actually. He got one late last year, week 18, first one this season, but whatever. Like,
starting over in a sense,
yes,
though,
Yes. And he's from Northern Iowa. Like, there's just a lot of things that there is a learning curve. So, like, there's an element of patience, but, like, how much? You know, it's a balancing act. And I think at some point you have to allow, like, the practical information just to make the decision. It doesn't matter how bad you want him to work. If he's not working, at some point you got to say, like, all right, we aren't going to ruin our season. We aren't going to have Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston, Jay Kane, or whoever starting games. This needs to be taken care of. So he has to get better in a hurry.
Bold prediction, though. You said you want to make sure the arrow is going up. I bet the arrow is going up from week 1 to week 2, just because how can it not? I mean, that was as rough of a performance as we could have expected to see from him in week 1.
Yeah, it's got to be an emphasis this week in practice. But given how much pressure Derek Carr was facing throughout the flow of a game, it almost makes us have an up arrow for Derek Carr for the way he at least handled that pressure with an entirely new offense.
Oh, I thought he was, like, when I went back and rewatched it and you just kind of see the circumstances of everything, it's like, all right, like, I understand, like, almost every single struggle in this game. The first 2 trips to the red zone, like, it's like, oh, all right, like, he was getting hit here. He couldn't get the throw off here. He was forced on the move here. He couldn't see here because, like, the pass rush was coming. So Like there were a lot of things where you kind of understand it, you contextualize it. I think, he still has to be better in the red zone overall. I think it's something that he's going to have to exonerate himself from, but like just given all the accusations of his struggles in that area of the field. But I don't think this game is part of that process, part of that reel. Like it was fine. Like I thought he was good. I thought he handled pressure really well. I liked how he stood in and made some throws. He made all the right decisions. Like you go through and you look at things, like you don't see like a lot of stuff that you're second guessing, which has not been the case here for a few years. So I liked a lot of what I saw, and I thought it was a little bit better after going back and rewatching it.
I completely. I love the way he handled pressure. How he moved in the like you said, sometimes stood in and had the right clock in his head, and sometimes moved well to avoid the pressure. And the other thing he didn't have was any run game. This is another knock on Trevor Penning, because that's supposed to be Trevor Penning's specialty, but it's a knock on everybody. It's as bad of a run game performance as I ever remember from the Saints. I mean, they were just putting themselves in awful situations, and they were setting up Derek Carr to have those third and longs because they could not run the ball. I mean, with any success the entire game until that last run as time was running down at the clock.
We have to give a shout out to NFL Films.
That was
now
awesome.
that we get to hear what Derek Carr is like, I need that every week, every game, to have a hot mic on at least 3 people in the offense, because that was great. Even seeing like Jameis Winston chip in and be like, yeah, like go for it.
That was awesome.
You know what I mean?
And Rashid Shaheed commenting on Jameis Winston. That was so
just
awesome.
Go. Yeah,
awesome.
But I like seeing that, and I think it's a good sign for just this organization that, look, it's week 1 and they're already clicking. Obviously, that is a really important aspect of it, is how is your offense gelling? Are people upset they're maybe not getting as many targets as they're, like Juwan Johnson, credit to him, a guy who was expected to be heavily targeted in week 1. He had to go help Trevor Penning in week 1 with picking up some of the blocks and things like that. We hope that week 2 it'll change a little bit. We'll get to see. We didn't really get to see Jimmy Graham at all, and any of the tight ends really get used. Juwan Johnson was really the only one that we saw the high volume in. But let's shift gears now to special teams. Terrible start, but good finish.
Terrible start in the return game.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously Zach Bond had that great play that was a game changer. But yeah, the return game's got to get better. I mentioned this in our 3 up, 3 down. They spent the offseason, Darren Rizzi was one of the leading voices in the NFL saying you have to, they don't like this fair catch rule in the NFL. And then Dennis Allen right away was like, maybe we should consider using the fair catch rule, because if they're going to give it to us at the 25, it's a lot better than the starting field possession they had in this game. That's not what they want to do. They want to give Rashid Shaheed a chance to return kicks, but it was the strategy. It was the execution. It was the 2 holding penalties against Adam Prentice and Lonnie Johnson Jr. It was Shaheed himself, obviously losing a fumble, but then also letting his momentum taken out of bounds, almost letting a ball bounce behind him. Everything about the return game was disturbing in this game. Now, those are things I think can get cleaned up, but I did not. That was one of the most unfortunate things about this game, definitely.
Yeah, I don't got a lot to add here. I mean, just kind of how it looked is how it was. The struggles were kind of obvious. The successes were pretty obvious, and they came together exactly how they looked when we saw them. I mean, it's just got to be tighter. Like, you can't have those mistakes. You can't have your first play of the freaking season be a turnover. Like, you just can't have it.
It was pretty bad. All right, let's do a quick who are we up on, who are we down on? Go ahead, Nick.
Oh, man, my up list is not going to be quick. It is very long, but we don't have to like go through every single person. I'm just going to name them. Up on Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave, Ryan Ramczyk, I thought was just outstanding on the offensive line. DeMario, I'm up on him. I'm up on Carl Granderson. I'm up on Marshawn. I'm up on Pete Werner. I'm up on Cam, and I'm up on Carl. And I already said Granderson. So
he deserved to be mentioned twice.
Blake Groupie. I'm up on Blake
Granderson
Groupie. Yeah, Carl Granderson was great.
Yeah, and look, we talked about the coaches a lot and guys that we had to see, Pete Carmichael and Dennis Allen. I think everybody's up higher on them, especially the Pete Carmichael, Derek Carr relationship. We saw it specifically play out. Him talking about the conversations they were having on the sideline. Yeah. Him talking about how they were empowered by Dennis Allen, and then he was empowered by Pete Carmichael. So that relationship between those 3 guys is really good, and that's why they invested so much in him for that relationship. But yeah, Shaheed is the guy I wrote about in my Fallout this week, because I was kind of surprised to see how heavily involved I mean, Olave, the leading catches, leading targets, just a monster weapon. Michael Thomas, we talked about him right after the game. So good to see him so heavily involved. But Shaheed was the biggest surprise of the 3 to me. I expected maybe, 2 catches and 1 run, not a career high 7 touches in this game, career high receiving yards, career high runs with the 2 runs. After he missed so much offseason, I didn't know if it was going to be slow development with him. He was shaky, obviously. As a return man, we just dissected some of the issues he had. But if this is the beginning, I think he's going to be a really big part of this team this year.
You got anyone?
I can't add too much. I mean, it's about the same. Like, I'm up on the entire defense, and I'm up on Derek Carr. But you mentioned Pete Carmichael and people being up on him. I don't think he let it loose just yet. Like, it was almost the testing week of, all right, what am I capable of doing? Who can I go to? Who can I trust? What play calls can I trust? I think they're going to clean up some of these red zone calls, but to me, I'm excited to see when Pete Carmichael really does let it loose with the play calls.
I don't even think the problem with Pete Carmichael is that he always needs to let it loose. It's that he needed to show in the last couple of years, but especially last year, that he had other ideas when something wasn't working, that he had somewhere else to go. And I thought that's something they did really well in this game. I loved the jet sweep runs toward the end. I loved saying, fine, let's throw it deep since we can't run. I loved the adjustments they made. Now, they never found a run game. Maybe they should have tried Taysom Hill more, but the adjustments was something we weren't seeing last year.
Yeah.
So let it loose. They let it loose in the fourth quarter. Better late than never, right?
I think it should, the jet sweep stuff though. Like, we were calling for that like at halftime. I think the margin for this win would have been a little bit more toward the Saints side of things in the second half had they gone to that earlier. I think they waited too long to go to it, but at least we saw the adjustment made.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one knock on Pete would be that it maybe took a little bit too long to figure out that Penning needed help. Like, it took him until halftime going into the third quarter. And that might just be one of those things where it's easy to say, like, sitting here, like, you got to make this adjustment on the fly or whatever. And, like, maybe they were trying and it just wasn't effective. And then when they had a chance to kind of, like, come together and just step back and get the information to everybody, maybe that's when it became effective. But it did feel like it took a little bit too long for them to do something there.
Who are you down on?
I'm down on the O-line as a whole, except for Ramczyk. Just really, really bad across the board. James Hurst had a couple moments in run blocking, but like it just wasn't good enough. And then the other guy that I just thought it was way too quiet for just him being an early signing and how much money he got. I just didn't see enough from Nathan Shepard yet. Like, he was one guy that I want to see a little bit more from. Maybe he was impactful in ways that didn't pop as much, but I don't know. Like, it just felt like there could have been a little bit more there.
Yeah, we just talked about special teams. That was a big one for me besides Trevor Penning. And I said this on the 3-up, 3-down pod. I hate to pick on Keith Kirkwood because, he did a lot to get himself on this roster, but he's missing an opportunity, I think, to try to establish himself while Traquan Smith is on IR. That wasn't an egregious holding penalty against him, but if that fourth receiver is only on the field because of his blocking, he didn't get the block placed on that jet sweep and then got called for holding, trying to salvage that block. 0 catches, and the one thing he was really noticed for in that game was a holding penalty in a huge situation. That's not going to keep Traquan Smith at bay, and it might not even keep A.T. Barry at bay.
Kirkwood tweeted he needs to play better himself, so you can hit him. He understands. Yeah.
The offensive line, though, that's got to be the biggest thing. You go out, you get a quarterback, spend a lot of money on Derek Carr. That's got to be the number one thing that's protected. I don't think it will benefit the Saints to wait to see if it comes on for Trevor Penning. Now, would they like to do that? Sure, but they're one hit away from having another quarterback question, right?
Yes.
At this point,
yeah,
can't have what happened with Aaron Rodgers, which, as an NFL fan, that just sucked to see. I mean, everybody wanted to see how this was going to work out in New York. Like, if you're just watching the NFL landscape, everybody was glued to the TV on that, but somehow the Jets still come out and get a win.
Yeah, man, the Jets are just, they're cursed. Like, it's unbelievable that this could happen to them. Like, it is on 4 plays. You didn't even get to 5. Like, you don't even get like through a whole hand. Like, it's 4 plays. It's unbelievable. Like, it's just on like the whole showcase for New York and everything. Like, it's supposed to be this like celebration and just bang. Like, I don't know how they won that game. I mean, it's a testament to the coaching staff and the rest of the players that they just weren't like completely dejected, but man, being a Jets fan has to suck.
Yeah.
I do want to say, since Nick mentioned Carl Granderson twice in the 3 again, to make sure on the down, the run focusing on Trevor Penning is giving too much of a free pass to the rest of the offensive line. You had that picture where 4 guys are turned around backwards, and you said this is the story of the game. Ryan Ramczyk probably had the best game of the bunch, but Derek Carr was in trouble from more than just one angle, although Penning was the worst defender in that. But they've got, if they don't have a run game, if they can't run block better in this, we thought these 5 starting offensive linemen were supposed to be a strength of this team. They better start showing that in a big hurry.
Look, and practice will be a little bit different this week. We will be back out there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then, of course, the Saints play on Monday night. But coming up next, we've got the Honey Badger back in studio. Can't wait to talk with Tyrann Mathieu, and we'll be right back after this.
Now, at New Orleans Hamburger and Seafood Company, get our $10.99 shrimp remoulade combos with zesty shrimp remoulade and fried shrimp or catfish for only $10.99. And did you hear? Soft-shelled crabs are back at New Orleans Hamburger and Seafood Company.
Are you tired of renting and ready to own your dream home? Contact Jefferson Financial Federal Credit Union, your trusted source for home loans. Our competitive rates and flexible terms can help make your home ownership dreams a reality. If you're a first-time home buyer or looking to refinance, our experienced lenders are here to help. Our online application process allows you to apply on your schedule. It's quick, easy, and convenient. Visit us online at jeffersonfinancial.org to learn more. Federally insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Lender.
At Turo, we were born for moments like this. From bringing new bundles of joy into the world, to delivering what new mothers need to stay healthy. Born to keep hearts beating strong, and to keep seniors active and healthy for years to come. Because at Turo, we deliver more than babies. From heart care to cancer care, and newborns to seniors. At Turo, we're born to care.
Martin Wine and Spirits is home to a selection of hand-picked barrel select bourbon, whiskeys, and much, much more. They are family owned and operated since 1946 and specialize in wine, spirits, gourmet food, gift baskets, catering, and tasting events. They have many locations, so they're never too far away. You can check them out in Metairie, New Orleans, Mandeville, and Baton Rouge, or if it's more convenient, you can always shop online. Whether you're a wine novice or a seasoned collector, you'll enjoy the Martin Wine and Spirit experience.
I'll take a New Orleans Saints scratch up. Play New Orleans Saints from the lottery. Just scratch, fold, and punch your way to winnings. Punch your ticket with New Orleans Saints. Win up to $100,000. Enter our second chance drawings, giving you a season to smile.
Welcoming Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, back in, Super Bowl champion. You know all his accolades with LSU. Thanks for being here.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Man, what a perfect time to talk to you. Did you feel like this defense could get off to the best start that we've probably seen in years?
I mean, we talked about it all spring.
Yeah.
I'd probably say the point of emphasis was, turnovers.
Yeah.
Right? Like impacting the quarterback. And, I remember in OTAs, us just like watching all the intercepts we dropped last year. Right. And so I was kind of grateful and thankful that, we came away with 3. We probably could have had 5. But I guess that's just me kind of being greedy.
Just crazy.
Yeah.
You mentioned just feeling something different in the spring. It seems like Dennis Allen has maybe been a little bit different, more commanding of this team. He kind of has his thumbprint now in this group and in the locker room. Is that what you're feeling from him?
Yeah, I mean, most definitely. Obviously, I think this is a, players-driven league. I think players go out there, they make plays, they win most games, but I think anytime you can kind of have a coach that's, like that hierarchy, commander in chief. I think a lot of the players, we like that. I think we encourage that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think most of us want to play for a guy like that.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into our money segment presented by Jefferson Financial Federal Credit Union. You mentioned just the commander in chief, things are different with Dennis Allen. Demario Davis actually said during training camp, probably 3 or 4 weeks ago now, said that there's something special about the defense, but he wouldn't give us like what the secret sauce was. What is it that he was talking about that's just the secret why the defense was going to be so good this year?
To be honest, I probably, really don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a different attitude.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times, for as long as I've been playing defense, the more guys on defense that you have, playing with an edge, playing with an attitude, playing with a chip on their shoulders, wanting to go out there and prove something. And I think we got a lot of different guys like that.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I think I'm one of them, and, I think Lat's one of them. You know what I mean? Like, he really wants to be, the best cornerback in this league. So I think anytime you have I think DeMario still wants to prove that, he's a really good linebacker. I think every year he kind of gets overlooked. I think when you have, quote unquote, your leaders, having a chip on their shoulders or having something to prove, it kind of just trickles down, to everybody.
You've been on some really good defenses, been around some really good coaches throughout the years. When DA's like in his bag like he is this week, like what are the things that stand out about like how he's putting the game plan together, how he's calling the game, and like what are some of the things that you think makes him a great coach?
Well, I know when he's in his bag, like throughout the work week, you know what I mean? Like just the different calls that he has, available. And I mean, our playbook is probably this big, but once it gets to game week, like we're doing things that, we know we can do, that we know guys can execute. And I mean, anytime he gets in front of the room, man, and like his chest is sticking out, you know what I mean? Like he's cracking jokes, he's kind of swagging out in the room. Like I said, man, like all of us can feel that. I think we encourage that, and so that's when we know, like he's in his bag this week, and we just got to get through the week, you know what I mean? Then get the game day, then we could have some fun.
Is it like about the design? Is it the simplicity? Like, what are some of the key elements when you got around him that kind of stood out that like make him, you think, Well, I've been in some exotic defenses. Some of them have been good, some of them have been bad. I think with DA, he has a few wrinkles, within his scheme, but for the most part, it's simple. You know what I mean? And then, like I said, when we go into a game, man, like we're gonna do the stuff that we know we can do at a high level, and things that we know we can execute. You know what I mean? Like all 11 of us. He'll just call that, you know what I mean, till the cows come home.
You mentioned the turnovers being an emphasis in training camp. I want to ask you, with the addition of Joe Woods, is there, obviously you saw the fruits of the labor of the emphasis in turnovers week 1. You have 3 interceptions, and then of course the big Zach Bond play during special teams. Was there something that changed as far as maybe coaching or the way you guys approach that in camp that changed, maybe even with Joe Woods coming in?
I mean, when Joe came in, like Joe is so detailed, right? Like, and he'll hold the meeting 20 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, and DA got to come in the room and be like, "Hey, Joe, the meeting's over. Let him go." You know what I mean? Like, so, like, it means a lot to him. You know what I mean? Like, he's committed to it. I think he really wants us to succeed. And then, like I said, man, I remember in the spring and in training camp, like, most times when you're like installing schemes, like you're showing the best plays from last season. Right, like, and it was like all of our worst plays, like all the drop interceptions, all the missed tackles.
Right, like, thanks, coach, appreciate it.
Come on, dog. He like, man, well, y'all make plays and I'll take them off. So I think we were all kind of motivated, you know what I mean, to like, put some good stuff on tape, you know what I mean, that he could show in the spring, you know what I mean, rather than, all the drop interceptions and missed tackles. So he got us motivated like early on, you know what I mean.
I think I saw you tweet that you were going to get 6 picks this year at one point. You're calling your shot a little bit. That'd tie your career high. Like, what do you got to do to hit that?
Well, I just got to catch the ball. You know what I mean? I had 3 last year. I think I dropped 4 last year. You know what I mean? So, I'll have more than enough opportunities, within the scheme. And I don't really have to do anything special. You know what I mean? I think, over the course of a season, I'll have a chance to catch 6 or 7. I just got to catch them, man. I just got to look it in.
This fan question kind of bleeds into some of the stuff you're talking about. It's our question of the day, presented by Martin Wine and Spirits. They are home to a wide selection of hand-picked barrel select bourbon, whiskeys, and more. All right, the question is, how do you balance being where you need to be based on the play call versus seeing the opportunity to make a play and potentially risk being out of position?
Well, it's a healthy balance, you know what I mean? And I think if for me, I think every game I look at, you always want to have, if you play 60 plays, you want to have 60 positives, right? But in those 60 positives, you may have, 4 or 5 chances to like, make a big play, whether it be a tackle for loss or interception, maybe it's a PBU, maybe it's a sack, you know what I mean? You just got to stay balanced, like, and let the game come to you. I remember last week, I was like itching to, everybody was catching picks. And I'm like, man, I got to go get me one. And so, they kind of ran the swap boot and the running back kind of ran a rail route. And my eyes was just thinking like, man, let me just, and then he threw it to him and, he's wide open. So, as long as you kind of do your job and, stay within the frame of, what you're supposed to do, you'll have opportunity to make a play. You just can't go looking for it because that's when you turn the guy free.
Yeah, like you can be see ball, get ball in that aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Is that something you process like in your mind, or is it just all instinct? Like you just see it and go, or is it something that you're thinking about and like if I see this, I'm gonna go? Like how do you kind of think about it?
Well, I think, within the scheme, different calls, kind of allows you to, see a formation, right? Like see a route concept and like go get it and trigger, right? But for the most part, man, like, the scheme is like so good, right? Like all you have to do is just kind of do your job, execute that. And then, like I said, man, over the course of a game or a season, like you'll look back and, you'll be able to count, really, on two hands, how many plays you could have made,
And you mentioned earlier just about Marshawn wanting to be a great, and that's something he's been talking about this year openly, like wanting to be like an all-time great, like Dion, Revis, like those guys. And that's kind of the first time we've ever heard him kind of like speak that way. Mm-hmm. What do you see from him like throughout the summer, coming into the season? Like, what are you seeing from him that makes it look like he's kind of on that track a little bit?
I mean, he's been locked in. And I know last year, obviously he, kind of dealt with the injuries and whatnot. He came back the Eagles game, had a really good game, for us. So, I just see a guy that's healthy, spiritually, mentally, physically, and I mean more than capable, of like just doing what he did last week every time he gets on the football field. You know what I mean? So, like he's a true gamer. But I've been more impressed with him in the classroom too. You know what I mean? He doesn't talk a lot. You know what I mean? So when I hear him asking questions, you know what I mean? Like when I hear him wanting to, see a play again, you know what I mean? So that kind of gets all us, fired up because we know he's locked in. Obviously he's probably the most talented, player in our secondary. You know what I mean? Just from like a skill set, standpoint. So I know when we know we have him locked in, like, it kind of forces all of us to, lock in and, we know we have a chance to be good that day.
So he's like big on the preparation because like he talks to us and he tries to make it kind of sound like he just like shows up and this just all kind of magically happens, but like he's really actually putting in work.
He's just cool, man. He's a cool cat. He laid back, man. But I think underneath the surface, man, one of the most competitive, guys I've ever been around. You know what I mean? And I've been around Mahomes, who is like, his competitiveness is like on steroids, you know what I mean? But I think underneath the surface, man, like he really wants to win, every rep.
Quick follow-up on Marshawn. I believe it was Marcus May who said that he often sees Marshawn even in the weight room, like after hours, things like that. Is that what you're seeing behind the scenes, some of that stuff that makes him that competitive?
Yeah, I mean, he's committed, you know what I mean? I remember, in training camp, him just kind of going in the weight room every day, right? Like, saying, man, I just got to get that step back. You know what I mean? Like, I got to get that bounce back, that spring back. So, like I said, anytime your best player is like doing, all the extra work, you know what I mean? It kind of forces up to kind of get up from our locker and, kind of join them.
Yeah. Somebody who is looking to make their own path, Jordan Houghton, somebody that you guys have had a lot of confidence in because we've seen him working in the dime package a lot in training camp, saw a little bit of that week one. What is it about him, even coming in as a rookie, that gives you guys so much confidence with putting him back there?
I mean, he's a smart kid, very versatile, doesn't really panic, you know what I mean, when the ball's in the air. He's got good size, you know what I mean, good power, good strength. And I mean, he's just a good kid, man. Like, always one of the first guys in the meeting room. Willing to do anything the coach, asked him to do. I remember in camp, like, he was, like, playing free safety, strong safety, nickel. You know what I mean? He was playing the buck and Ruby. So it's like, he had a lot of different things on his plate, and he was able to handle it all.
And just being back there, getting a first-hand look at Mike Thomas and Olave kind of all summer, just kind of what's the defensive back review, just kind of where you saw those guys at coming into the year?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of stress, dealing with those guys in practice, you know what I mean? Especially when, most of training camp practice is scripted, right? And they have all your coverages, you know what I mean? So it's like all they running is like coverage beaters, the whole day. But, I mean, it was good. I think for Mike, man, it was a healthy process for him, you know what I mean? Obviously, he didn't do too much in the spring. And then as camp came, he gradually, started doing more. And I remember this past week, man, all of us was kind of sitting down on the sideline watching him run around. And, every ball he caught, he took it to the end zone. You know what I mean? Like, his legs looked like they were under him. So, that's always a good sign to see. You know what I mean? Especially with, the injuries he's kind of dealt with the last few years. So, he's confident. I think he knows he has a quarterback that could, get him the ball. And I mean, with Olave and Shaheed, I mean, man, just speed demons. You know what I mean? And Olave is really underrated in the sense that most guys that fast, they can't run routes. You know what I mean? They're kind of like one-trick ponies, but he's a guy that can really, kind of execute the whole route tree.
Sticking with the offense, everybody was waiting to see Derek Carr finally put it together in the Dome for the first time. We only got to see one drive in all of the preseason. How has he maybe changed as far as his personality and confidence? Look, we know what happened with him with the Raiders organization. Did you see maybe a change from the day he walked in the building to now that he's in kind of a supportive environment? I
mean, he's just happy, man. I mean, obviously, from my perspective, I see a team guy, you know what I mean? I see a team leader. And what really impresses me the most is, most of the time defensive guys kind of sit with defensive guys, for lunch. And the offensive guys kind of sit with offensive guys. But he kind of make his rounds. One day he's sitting with the DBs. One day he's sitting with the linebackers. So, I mean, he's a genuine spirit.
Yeah.
So, obviously we all got to do what we can to, help support him. You know what I mean? And just try to continue to, help us win games.
You might be the best person on the team to even ask this question of how things went down with you and the Chiefs. And having been in kind of a situation similar to his where, I mean, the rug got pulled out from under him with the Raiders. How, speaking on just what you experience and kind of not necessarily talking for him, but can understand what he went through, how does that affect a player mentally when you're trying to get back to yourself and get back in the flow of the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times, man, I think players, in Derek's situation and obviously my situation, guys that were, team leaders, team captains, done a lot of different things in the community. You become invested in more than just the football team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's definitely hard. I think for me personally, it kind of took me a minute to adjust to that. You know what I mean? Because, I didn't think I was going to leave Kansas City. I thought I was going to retire there. You know what I mean? And so it didn't work out that way. I think for other players, it may be a smoother transition for them. Maybe they aren't as invested, in things outside of the team. You know what I mean? So, I think it's really just based on, the player and, how much they gave themselves to, the city.
Yeah, he dove right in, just like you dove right back in when you came back to New Orleans. That's our moment. Derek Carr finally hitting the field, hitting the Superdome for the first time. That's our moment presented by New Orleans Hamburger and Seafood Company.
Yeah, so another tweet, man. Like, I noticed something the other day. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was like some big number about like career stats, and you're like, I got to get to like 600 or whatever. Like, what are your plans for your career? Like, how long do you want to play for?
So my goal has always been, I've been blessed, man. I've signed like 6 contracts. You know what I mean? Like, my kids are good. But my goal has always been to get 40 interceptions and 20 sacks. And I think I need like 11 picks, and I think I need like 9 sacks.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So somebody tweeted the other day that I had 700 tackles.
That's
right?
what it was.
And I'm like, if I could get to 1,200 tackles, 40 intercepts, 20 sacks, like, how could they deny me? You know what I mean? Hopefully I get another Super Bowl ring. You know what I mean? So that'll be 2 Super Bowls and, one of probably 8 players that have done that, in this league. So, that's motivating for me.
What is that, like 2 or 3 years? Like, if you're doing 6 picks, do that twice, that's 2 years. If it's not, is it?
Yeah, every year is different. So hopefully I can do it in 3.
You got closer to it in week 1.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you ever contemplated, or are you still just going? Have you ever had a moment where you ever considered like stepping away or anything?
The only time, my mind goes there is obviously when I'm with my kids, you know what I mean? Or, when my son has a baseball tournament, right? Like, and, maybe it's like a 4-day weekend where he's playing baseball, but I only could be there 2 days, right? Because I got to go back to work, right? And so, or maybe it's like my daughter, cheerleading. She like cheerleading and gymnastics now, right? And so it's like all I get is videos, right? Because most of the time I'm at work. So, and me and Demario talk about like these kind of things a lot, right? But I think outside of that, I have a good life, man. I have a great life, and I think that's kind of the only things that kind of gets me, because I've accomplished a lot in this league. Maybe I could just go home, you know what I mean, and just hang out with the kids. But I mean, I'm just trying to get to those 40 picks and them 20 sacks, man, and another Super Bowl.
There you go.
Your daughter is precious too. I'm
Thank
sure
you.
it pulls at the heartstrings when
All the
she's
time.
like, "Where are you at? Why can't you
All the
be
time.
here?"
All the time.
Diving into the playbook a little bit, it seemed more often than not than you guys had a single high safety were in cover one, probably a little more often. And Nick had pulled up the numbers from the first game, a little more often than you did last year. How much trust does that say you guys have in your outside corners and even in that single high safety, that if you're daring the offense to throw it deep, that you have trust in those guys?
I mean, I think our coaching staff has good trust, in our secondary in general. You know what I mean? And I think last year coming into the season, obviously, I was new to the system. Marcus was new to the system. And I don't think a lot of people remember that Debo got hurt in camp.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, having Alante out there and, he's a rookie playing outside, I think naturally you'll probably, shift to, the safer coverages, too high, kind of help protect everybody. But, for the most part, man, we got a healthy group of guys back there, a motivated group of guys too. So, and I think our coaches have kind of been able to see that, throughout training camp.
When you have that trust in your outside corners and even in the safeties, whoever it is going the single high, how much does that help just the defense accomplish what it wants to do in a flow of a game?
Yeah, I mean, I think it helps accomplish a lot. I think when you have cornerbacks on the outside that can, challenge receivers at the line of scrimmage, give the D-line an extra second to affect the, the passer. And when you have, a safety back there that, most quarterbacks, they second guess throwing that ball. You know what I mean? So I think it helps everybody out from, double D to, our front. And especially those guys on the outside, I think they're able to kind of really, show, their abilities and really what they can do.
Can't let you get out of here before we ask you about your LSU Tigers. Since you're wearing it in here. Look, you were a member of DBU back in the day. What's got to get fixed for LSU to figure out their issues, specifically with their defensive backs?
Well, I think you just have to kind of like we were talking about earlier. A big part of playing defense is attitude, right?
Yeah.
And your mindset, and how much are you willing to commit, to the guy next to you. I remember when I went to LSU, it wasn't necessarily about playing for LSU, right? Like I was more so playing for Patrick Peterson, you know what I mean? Brandon Taylor, you know what I mean? So having a chance to kind of share the field with those guys kind of got me, really going, you know what I mean, and motivated. So, I wouldn't put too much pressure, on these young guys. I know for, really the last couple of years, there's been a lot of transfers.
Yeah.
A lot of transfers coming in, right? And maybe they don't kind of understand the culture or understand, what's expected of them. Maybe they just want to come to LSU because maybe that's like a cool, thing to do. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think as long as those guys kind of get back to, the standard, you know what I mean, of what it means to represent and play, DB for LSU, I think they'll be all right. But I won't be too hard on them. I know I'll probably see him in a couple months. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you were out there in Orlando. That had to be tough to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my sons, they were madder than me. You know what I mean? Like they couldn't believe that we was losing this game. You know what I mean?
It was bad. Hey, Florida State's good. They got a good ball club, though.
They do. They play hard.
All right, since we got the inside guy, Brandon, we're going to go to a one shot here. I got to ask you, I saw this and I was like, you can probably watch this and tell us who is this in the Saints locker room. So it's the red flags. The guys with the red flags in the locker room. They call it beige flags.
Okay. Pukes before every game. Takes a shot at Tabasco. Listen to Christmas music.
Like, this is just, do guys do this in the Saints locker room, or is this just so random?
Well, that's me, for sure.
Who? All right, what is it? What's your pregame ritual?
I always lay out my uniform.
Okay.
Yeah, that's me.
We're talking like socks, the pants, the jersey,
everything.
Arm sleeves, arm bands. And I've been doing that since I've been doing that since LSU. So that was always my thing to do. And I hate when guys step over it. You know what I mean?
Oh, you can't even step on it. You can't step over it.
Can't step over it, bro. Just walk around it. You know what I mean? So then every time they step over it, I gotta kind of redo it, set it up right. And I probably say my other superstition is I gotta have a Snicker or Twix.
Pre-game or during the game?
I just have to have it in my locker.
Do you eat it, or it's just got to be
Yeah,
there?
I eat it.
All right.
We can't talk because we have so much candy in here all the
Yeah,
time.
I gotta eat it. So my defense, one of my defensive coaches in Kansas City, he would like always leave me a Twix and a Snicker in my locker, and it was just like magically I would always catch an intercept that game. So I was like,
there it is. Anybody else in the locker room that's got something they do?
Oh man,
Like I feel like Trevor Penning would have something unusual. But I know the way like the locker room is, I guess you can't necessarily see where everybody's at.
I mean, Marshawn, he kind of wraps his legs in like this little white wrap before the game, and every time he does it, I'm like, oh, he's about to go lock him up.
Yep,
You know what I mean?
this is it.
And when he don't do it, I'm like, oh, I'm a little hesitant. You know what I mean? But yeah, I probably say it's like the only two.
Yeah, I learned the hard way to be mindful of guys laying out clothes on the floor. Demario Davis got like a special. I don't think you were on the team yet, but when they played Gardner Minshew when he was with the Jaguars, they know each other from growing up.
Oh, okay.
Remember he had the shirt that he hung up?
Yeah.
Before he hung it up in the locker room, he had it on the ground. And this is when I was working in Baton Rouge, local TV, having to carry my own mic and camera and all that. I stepped on it.
Oh, no, you can't do that.
Oh, it was bad. Oh, it was bad. I thought Demario was going to lift me and move me. What are you doing? Do you not see this laying here? But yeah, no, it's sacred. So if you're ever in an NFL locker room, anybody listening, watch for what's out on the floor.
Oh, yeah.
All right, just before we let you get out of here, how are you feeling heading into week 2 against the Panthers for Monday night?
I mean, we feel good. Like I told the DBs today, I thought we had a good, first week. Obviously it's another challenge. You know what I mean? So it's prime time. It's Monday Night Football. Like, why not go do that again? You know what I mean? So and why not do it better? You know what I mean? So that's always a challenge. I think the goal is always to win. You know what I mean? And obviously we lost to those guys twice last year. So, I mean, it's definitely not a team that, we're overlooking. You know what I mean? So, just trying to go out there and kind of play our style of ball and, come out there with a win.
All right, so better than week 1. So we got an early 4 interceptions prediction for week 2. Tyrann, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.